Okay, we are live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have a very special guest. He comes to us from Scotland. I've had many recent guests from Scotland, interestingly. His name is Ewan Morrison, last name spelled Morrison. And if you're watching this on Rockfin Rumble or X Twitter, you will see the cover to his new book. And the book is titled For Emma, a novel. And you'll see some cool blurbs. One is from Terry Gilliam, one of my favorites. I grew up on Monty Python watching it on PBS here in the States, but Terry Gilliam writes, absolutely wonderful, riveting, sad, mad, and terrifying. I agree with that. He is in Glasgow right now, and he has a long bio, but this is going to be the brief one. I'll read it. He is the 2019 winner of the Saltire Society Prize for Fiction, Book of the Year for Nina X. Nina X is being adapted for film by David Mackenzie, whose film Hell or High Water was Academy Award nominated for Best Picture. Ewan's most recent novel, How to Survive Everything, 2021, has been published in the U.S. by Harper Perennial and has been acquired for translation in Germany and the Czech Republic. It is currently being adapted as a TV series with Made Up Stories, Kindling Pictures' 5th season, and Ewan can be found on X at Mr. Ewan Morrison, so his full name, Mr. Ewan Morrison. So I'll put a link to his X. But again, today we're going to talk about a faintly fictional novel, but a lot of nonfiction themes in there. I read through it. I found it very interesting. It took copious notes. It takes place where I grew. I grew up in Palo Alto, so I know this area, Stanford, North Bay, all around that he writes about, but he can talk more about that. So Ewan Morrison, welcome to the show.
Hey, William, thanks for having me. Hey, I should just apologize in advance. The slow, low, croaky voice is not my usual tone of voice. This is me with a cold I've had for 10 days. So I shall try not to cough.
Great.
But please let me know if I need to clear my throat and speak more clearly.
No problem. Feel free to use the mute button. That's not a problem. For people who may not know your name here in the States, maybe you could talk about your background. You have a long CV, a lot of work in TV and writing, definitely a multifaceted career. Talk about your background, your recent books like How to Survive Everything, and then what led up to the research and writing of For Emma.
Good stuff. Okay, well, going back into something that people might know, in 2014, my wife and I did a project for National Geographic called American Blackout. And it was a survivalist story, really, about what would happen in America if there was a terrorist strike that knocked out the electric system. So it was one of these drama docs. It had lots of real footage and lots of real stats and facts. And I ended up playing on National Geographic, and also I think it was trailed at the Super Bowl, and I believe it was even talked about in Congress, because it was one of these things where people were a bit freaked out by it, a bit like the H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, where a work of fiction was seen as being like threateningly real. So from that, we got huge dossiers of material on civilizational collapse, because National Geographic has great reach into the institutions, as you can well imagine. So we had documents from the CDC, from FEMA, from the collapse department, study of collapse at Columbia University's collapse studies. Who even thinks such a thing would exist? Large dossiers, which basically showed what the government does in the case of any kind of civilizational threat or collapse at all. All the way to sort of, the military coming and forcing you out of your own home because they're trying to control the populace, which is something we saw Hurricane Katrina. Anyway, I had all this research and I thought, well, this is astounding. It goes well beyond the pale of the program that we were going to make. So I made a book out of that research. So very factual, but also based on things which are almost fantastical, and dreadful and cataclysmic. As I was writing this story about a bunch of survivalists trapped in a civilizational collapse, the COVID pandemic kicked off. And I realized, yeah, I better write this thing fast and get it out. And that was what How to Survive Everything, my preceding novel was. But I mean, throughout my history as a writer, which goes back 20 years now, I used to work in film and TV exclusively before that. I'm very focused on real life research, fascinated in the myths that we live by as well. That meeting point where belief structures and ideology manifest in our lives and change the way that we behave. So really, so the book before How to Survive Everything was based on a girl who grew up in a Marxist left-wing cult. There was a number of case studies of kids and women in particular that had been abused by political cults. So I wrote a book, Nina X, which was about a political cult, and how similar it is to the cults that we're more familiar with, the Manson family, Jonestown, and all the rest of it. So I'm coming to Portland, Oregon shortly to do a recce as we're relocating that story over there. So so How to Survive Everything, the survivalist story, and Nina X are both gathering steam as film and TV projects just now. And For Emma, people say it's kind of like a trilogy, really, of these three books, because they're all about politics, belief, and cataclysmic things that occur. In the case of For Emma, it's based in Silicon Valley, and it's about a girl who dies from brain chip technology that's been implanted in her head, and it's her father's revenge over 30 days. As he hears Emma's voice in his head telling him how to kill the CEO of the corporation that was responsible for the brain implant death that she went through. So yeah, so they're big themes, and big themes focused on small people. And in some ways, they're stories of the little people fighting back against a bigger system. That seems to be just an ongoing theme.
Right. I mean, these big you have it played out as these huge corporations, these big kind of tech titans, and somebody who got involved. I mean, these are themes right now. Teal's around in Bilderberg this weekend, and I mean, they just had this Palantir roll out here in the States, which is incredible before this attack on Iran and Musk's Neuralink. So these are really timely issues, like how much it's not just state sovereignty, but mental sovereignty, right? Like that's really the issue. A lot of these things, right? And I mean, I think one of the interesting things about your book too, I found, is the kind of structure that it's laid out. And I think we were talking in the pre-show about mediums and how we get information and how different people get different information. But I think that that's an important aspect of your book, is the way you structured the information and how it's coming to the reader. Can you talk more about that?
Sure. So the book actually opens up with, so the title of the book is For Emma. It starts with an editor who's largely inexperienced, who receives an email that seems like a spam. And it says, open this, and the address looks like it's from the therapist of the suicide bomber in San Francisco, who was responsible for 9 deaths and 23 casualties. So she's like, she's an editor. She's like, well, this can't be real. This must be spam. But she thinks about it. Well, maybe I'll just take this one home and open it at home on my laptop and see what it is. It turns out to be a folder of video recordings that the man who's held responsible for these bombings made in the last 30 days before the bombing incident. And he's addressed them to his dead daughter as a sort of memento, his daughter Emma. So the videos are him talking to himself as he's learning how to make bombs, etc. And throughout, the editor, she's very skeptical to start with. It's an old device that I took from 19th century books where you make your editor part of the story. Yeah. And I just kept developing it So she comes up like I think 12 times in the whole story as she realizes that the text and the videos that she's got hold of herself are dangerous. As she gets fired for possession of them, as she senses that she's under surveillance for even looking at them, as she suspects that there's a cover up about this bomber and actually the true story of as to what happened about the death of his daughter has been covered up, not just by the tech corporation, but by the mainstream media and maybe even the government. So the book is ordered like her transcriptions of the videotapes that she finds with her. I mean, the main character in the story is Josh, the father, talking to his daughter. But the editor's pulling this story together and gradually, not to give too much away, he becomes endangered by possessing this. And the end of the book is without all of the main characters. It's just news reports. And by the time we get to those news reports and transcripts, we probably don't believe what the news is telling us. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's the real climate of paranoia that's in the States now. I mean,
yeah.
What's real? Who believes what? What's on the mainstream media? Are they really telling you the full story? I probably wouldn't have a job if they were telling us the full story, honestly.
Hey, did you see that yesterday? That the U.S. military secretary said that they got a message from an astronaut on the moon yesterday,
yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
who was also a soldier apparently. I think this is what happens when government offices start using ChatGPT to write their scripts for them. You know.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Well, they apparently they had a disclosure that the in the States the Department of Defense is psyoping people about UFO to cover up secret programs. So a lot of these guys who are like disclosure are, these are admissions that this is a psychological operation. So how can you trust what's in the media? It's like you have to kind of be your own filter, and it goes back in a pre-show. Like 1984 is come and gone. Like it's very incredible. I think he was in Jura too, where he wrote up by you, kind of closer to you, is where Eric.
That's right. Arguably George Orwell even died to write that book because he refused medical help 2 months before he was supposed to check into a hospital. He was dying of TB. But he said, "No, damn it, I'm going to finish this book." And he sat there in a rank and cold and wet, windy old cottage in the middle of the island of Jura off the west coast, and probably damaged, his lungs terribly with his chain smoking as well and his log fire. But he got that draft finished of 1984, and thank God he did. It's such an important book. And, I think also there's things that people forget about 1984 as well, is there's actually two sections in 1984, the book, which are, there's one which is it's like an essay on the nature of language in their future society. Most people skip past that, but it's incredible as well. And it's like a guide really to the whole politic today about misinformation, and hate speech and the policing of language. And he was doing this in 1948.
And censorship, right? Like that's what what's the main character's name? He's basically a censor so there's themes between 1984 and your book. Yours is a more contemporary kind of application of some of those themes, I think. I mean, censorship is there, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, like from the start, even the editor, as she's going through the book, she redacts out certain words. So it's a book full of redactions. Right. She doesn't want anyone to get hurt by the bomb making descriptions that she's got, so she redacts those. And by the time we get towards the end of the book and we're seeing documents from the FBI, those are entirely redacted. Or there's an interview later on where the bomber and his therapist the bomber's therapist is in discussion with the police being interrogated, and they've redacted all the questions of the police in there. So the censorship pervades the book, and we don't know which narrative really to believe as well. Is this just a story about a very sad man who lost his daughter and who then fantasized that the corporation she was working for was responsible? Or Is he receiving messages from his dead daughter telling him how to construct this bomb and who to kill? And is her voice in some way connected with the technology that killed her? So we don't really know the truth in that, and we have to work it out for ourselves. And people argue about which side of the story they fall down on. Yeah,
It's not that far out from reality with AI and the copying of things. I think that it's there's an element of memory too in your book, like how family memories, individual memories, how they're going to live on or how they're going to affect the future. I think that are addressing.
Yeah, no, so we have the forward movement in the story of like the 30 days and the countdown as he makes these bombs, as he tests them. But there's the backward draw throughout that all the time of these painful memories he has of Emma. And memories I discovered when I was writing them often are on really small things, really small, beautiful, potent things like, having marshmallows on a beach with a stick the day the wind blew too much and you got sand all over your marshmallows and you ate them anyway. Or the time he has to try to tell her that he's breaking up with her mother, and they're in a truck listening to one piece of music, and that piece of music then becomes a motif through the rest of their lives. Memories of how impotent he felt as a father when he couldn't do anything to stop her being bullied in high school. Memories as well of how he dabbled and interfered in a relationship that she'd had with a young man. And he realizes later on, had he not done that, Emma would never have studied in Silicon Valley and would never have joined the corporation that ended up killing her. So he realizes memory works against him in a sense. And I mean, people find it quite an emotional read in that sense, because it is someone in what he thinks will be the last 30 days of his life being sort of haunted by memories of beautiful moments and also memories of guilt when you could have done things differently.
I just lost you. I don't know what happened. Let me check my settings. Let me pop back in. And can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You can hear me, huh?
That's I can good. Hear you. Oh, I hope everyone could hear what I was saying there, because that was a good one.
Let's see. How's that work? Sometimes you just be sitting there. Can you hear me now?
I can totally hear you all the time, yeah.
I think you hear me. I can't hear you. The wonders of StreamYard. I don't know what's going on. Just blocked out. Let's see. Can you hear me?
I can still hear you.
Okay, yep. Good. Okay, there we go.
You're all good.
Sorry about that. So StreamYard has been kind of glitchy recently. I'm trying to get off of it, actually. Anyway, so memory is an important component of the book. They're also the technology, right? Like this, we're new. It's not just interbrain cranial interface, which is for real.
Sure, yeah.
Nanobots, things like that too. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm concerned about the intrusive technologies of brain chip interface. There's 6 companies now in the world who are doing this. We know about Musk doing it through Neuralink, but we don't know so much about Bezos and Gates also involved in this invasive technology. People always talk about it in terms of, yes, the good that it's doing to people, So someone who's had major spinal trauma can be given back the use of a robotic limb, for example, by a brain chip, or someone who's lost the power of speech can use their eyes to scan words on a screen and can piece together sentences for communication. So they talk about these in terms of liberation for people, therapeutics, really. But we have to remember as well that these people like Bezos and Musk and Gates are involved in a worldview which is about bringing in transhumanism and invasively bringing technologies into our bodies. And if you listen to some of the predictions that, in particular, Musk makes, he says we'll have 10 people with brain chips this year, 100 next year, and in 10 years we'll have 1 million. And the idea is twofold. It's augmented human beings, and at the same time, it's the data human, the human that just becomes a system that communicates data that then feeds the huge artificial intelligence system that they want to grow, that they believe is their kind of replacement for God. So in some sense, the technology itself is nuts. It's sci-fi that they take to a religious level. But there's so many of them doing this within Silicon Valley. It is almost like a kind of replacement God. And so many of their technologies are talked about in big utopian ways, you know. So they talk about, so like with the nanobots, you know, they talk about nanobots that will clean out your blood system, that will cure diseases, repair tissue, that will increase longevity to the point where people will eventually become immortal. So we touch on the big religious themes there. So there's immortality from nanobots, and there's the creation of a digital god through the AI brain chips. So they're really, you know, I believe, and I've written about this in one of my Substack articles on my Substack Untopia. I believe that the transhumanist movement, which is so powerful in Silicon Valley, is a neo-religion or a cult. I put it through Robert J. Lifton's 8 points for cult test. He's a psychologist operating with cults and brainwashing over the last 30, 40 years. And transhumanism scored 7 of the 8 points in Lifton's test for a neo-religion / cult. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I think you're right. And they talk about it. I did a show on Mark Andreessen, who's an investor tech guy. He's been on Joe Rogan. And he has this kind of religious view of this tech utopia. Like, they're utopians. There's no question about it. They have, and it's not a Christian. It's not Christian. It's something different. It's more New Age, but it also incorporates kind of, it's almost like a perennialist where they incorporate ideas from all kinds of religions around the world. But there's very little oversight too, though. That's another theme in your book. Who's watching the watchers? Who's watching these guys with this high technology and what they're capable of doing and covering up, right? If nobody's watching them and then the cover-ups happen, like, then who knows what's happened in the past? I mean, holy smokes. Or even the present, like DARPA here. I've done shows on DARPA that have just incredible, like, they're 2 steps ahead of what the public has for our usage, which is super complex. Like, my phone is incredible. Like, it does incredible stuff, but still, I mean, I think that's an important theme in this book too, is just this incredible tech acceleration.
Well, there's one of the big themes really is how the young get sucked into technology, you know, not just because it's shiny, not just because it offers you, you know, distractions, but because the young have been sold this idea that technology can be better than people. You know, so there's this gradual replacement. I mean, the way it starts off with, I always think of, like, you know, like a V-shaped wedge. So it starts off, your technology becomes like, it's a distraction. It's a novelty, right? So your new phones have got these bunch of gizmos and tricks, whatever. Or, hey, someone invents internet dating, and you're like, you know, 5% of the population thing. It's really cool. It's funny. It's entertaining. And then, you know, the wedge gets driven in a little bit more, you know, and you find that by the time you get to Generation Z, 80% of Generation Z prefer to use internet dating, and find people who talk to each other in the street weird, you know, or the idea of meeting someone, you know, picking them up or chatting to them without knowing them already has become strange to them, you know. And then the third layer in that wedge that gets driven in is Mark Zuckerberg's plan to just replace human relationships completely. You know, you will have 15 AI friends, you will have an AI lover, and when things don't go right, you'll have an AI therapist to talk you through it. So the danger is just how seductive this is to young people, and how vulnerable they are to having human replacement just sweep through their generation.
It's a real thing. It's a real thing. Like, how much tech, some of these kids are on the phone. They go to restaurants, they're on their phone or a tablet. So the saturation is another thing. Another kind of interesting element is this whole manifesto kind of writing thing, like, and even like Kaczynski, or he pops up, this Mangione, who was kind of like,
Yeah.
this guy. Oh, they all have manifestos. They're all trying to relate why they did their stuff or rationalize. And I think that's another interesting, like almost like some of the trans people involved in trans. They're all thinking about this philosophizing or philosophically trying to put themselves in the context of this strange new world. It's a brave new world. So I think that's another thing is people really are thinking about it. I think your book has the element to it. Like the guy's writing a 30-day video blog of his actions. He's kind of like a Mangione. Would you agree with that?
I would say he's probably more. I think he is like a Mangione in a sense, but I think he's more like a Ted Kaczynski. More like the Unabomber, in as much as I studied the Unabomber manifesto when I was working on this. Josh is, he's not as academic as the Unabomber. He hasn't quite got his theory right, but he understands that what happened to his daughter is just a part of a bigger human replacement agenda. And so I think towards the end of the book, he thinks he's not just doing this bombing to kill the CEO, which again is a very Mangione sort of thing. But he's convinced himself he has to do this for young people to save them from being taken over. So the book sometimes is described as a manifesto, an anti-tech manifesto, or someone called it a doomer manifesto because it's it says that we're doomed if we don't get rid of this technology. I'm actually much more optimistic than that. I think that someone said to me recently, "You're a decelerationist," and I'm like, "Hey, nothing decelerates more than a car accelerating into a brick wall." That's where I think that's where the technology is going just now. I don't think it's going to take us to the big goals of the AI god. The human level intelligence, the super intelligence. I think what it's doing is it's taking to a bunch of dehumanized technologies that are just involved in human replacement. That's human replacement of work, of leisure, replacement of human creativity, replacement of human relationships. I think that's the bigger danger, is this pervasive reduction of what it is to be human. I really don't think that the technologies are going to go exponential and reach that point of super intelligence. I think a lot of it's hype within the AI industries, but I do think the damage that's done, even with the existing technologies we have, I mean, the introduction of facial recognition technologies, of human mapping, like the Chinese social credit system, the prospect of bringing in digital currencies and ID cards, big push in Europe for this just now. You've got a bit of pushback against it in the US, but we have powerful people like Tony Blair and the Blair Institute, proposing a growth of facial recognition technology, ID cards, human mapping, controlled societies according to plans and algorithmic mapping. It's that whole thing about like, we will know what you eat and where you go and who you speak to and what you say. As you say, 1984 is here. And interestingly, these are things that were talked about by Ted Kaczynski. In his manifesto, he did warn about these things. He did say we have to stop it now before it's too late. Of course, I don't condone what Kaczynski did. Kaczynski, of course, was himself, one of the victims of MK. Whoa, sorry, of MK Ultra.
Yeah, 3 years of torture under this guy Murray, who was a known kind of psychiatrist who was not up to good deeds. Yeah, so
indeed.
So it's a brain tampering. So he was maybe the early Emma who kind of came out and that's the whole thing is like, what's the ethics of this? Well, who's overseeing it? Why? It's like the technology oversees the law and over the ethical understanding. Like, where are the naysayers? So one of the interesting things that happened with Trump when he got into office earlier this year is behind him were all the tech giants.
That's true.
They weren't industrial giants or anything,
yeah.
But it's Google, Facebook, the list goes on.
Even OpenAI was there,
right, they were going to do $500 billion to OpenAI, and this guy
Yeah.
Which is an incredible investment. Like, it's just a huge number. So it's like people need to be aware. They need to see this, and also,
well, the rollout from this is terrible, though. It's terrible. When you have a mandate coming from the president that not only is AI going to be taught in schools, but it's going to be replacing teachers. And we see what the AI really is. It's full of errors and just untruths and nonsense, because these large language models are not human level intelligence. So we don't want to be replacing teachers with this malfunctioning technology. And I don't think we should be giving it 500 billion either.
Yeah, I agree. I worked with Chat GPT, and it was clearly lying to me. It was deceiving me. It gave me fake citations. Like, yeah. And you're like, oh, these are real citations. And then you look up the citation, it'd be totally fake. And it wouldn't tell you it was fake.
That's right. That's right. You click on the citation, it just isn't there as a link.
Yeah.
I asked it to create a bibliography for me, and I gave it the wrong number of books to see what it would do. So I've written 9 books. I said, give me a bibliography of Ewan Morrison's 12 novels. So it invented 3 to fill up the numbers. Wow. It invented 3, and one of them, it stole the names from other places. So it said that I'd written a book called The Birth of a Nation, which was that
super racist movie, right?
Super racist movie by D.W. Griffiths. Yeah. Another one, it said I won't name the actual title. It was erotic, shall we say, and based on a Robert Burns poem, but it just lifted that pornographic poem and made it the title of a book that I'd written.
Right, so it has like a trickster element to it. At least ChatGPT has it. Maybe Grok hasn't done that to me, which goes into the character of AI and like who's the wizard behind the curtain, And the guy who started ChatGPT, there's some questions about his integrity was a way to say it, I guess. But yeah, I mean, these are all issues that need to be at least talked about. It's really incredible.
Yeah, well, I think we're in danger of losing the thread of what truth is, because AI creates so much untruth. It creates so much nonsense on a small level. Even Google AI not being able to tell you what the time is, or one thing that's been funny in the last few days is people have started spotting that it's been scraping things like The Onion and the Babylon Bee and thinking that this stuff's for real.
Wow, interesting.
So AI, so someone posted a thing saying that the east and west part of Nova Scotia are in different time zones. They are 12 minutes apart. And
so it has no sense of humor. So it's almost like Hal, right?
It's no sense of humor.
You can't replace the human sense of humor or satire.
No, indeed. It's really just a thief of all of the texts that we already have in the world, and then it tries to cover up the thieving by throwing wild cards in there to throw us off the copyright theft. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Right. The Gemini, it was the character of the AI creators, and they kind of like blackfaced all these old white people like George Washington, and they just didn't write it in there to be accurate. They wanted to create a kind of a multicultural woke AI, and that's what it did. It literally changed history. Like, imagine like the lens that you're looking through all the stuff. So
there was that thing with Microsoft where it was a couple of years back. Microsoft AI was asked, how do you get rid of human suffering in the world? And it replied, get rid of humans. which is factually correct, because if you get rid of humans, then you can't actually have any suffering. It's not actually malicious, though. It's not like a diabolic machine that wants to kill everyone. It's just noticing a little nuance within the language that we use and throwing it straight back at us.
There was one story, I don't know if it's true or not, but the guy said, I'm going to shut you down and you're not going to work. And the AI actually went into his emails and found out that he was cheating on his wife or something like that. I'll blackmail you. I'll tell somebody who's Agneska. Have you heard that story? But I mean, that's like Skynet level. This is like Big Brother, Skynet, making decisions. Skynet, yeah, get rid of humans. That's the solution. Yeah, I mean, it's really something else. But I think that your book has a lot. It encapsulates so many of these current themes that we're seeing, like manifestos and lone actors and lone wolves, and going all the way back to Kaczynski, Mangione too. Mangione was smart. Like the characters in your books are intelligent too. So it's like a reflection of these people making pretty intense decisions, considering where we're at.
I was quite surprised actually, because I have a whistleblower within the story who has information on the big tech company and how they've done these experiments with brain chips all over the world. They've done them in third world, developing world countries with a greater number of fatalities. It's all covered up. And Josh meets this young man and gets a hard drive from him. And then when he goes back to see him again, he's vanished. And his mother tells him that he's died by suicide, but that she doesn't believe it. And I was shocked to find, just before publication, the story of Sufir Bahal from OpenAI, who was the whistleblower who committed suicide as well. So sometimes
his mother doesn't believe it too, right? His real mother
doesn't believe it. Yeah, indeed. His mother's got a campaign going to. I don't think it's doing very well after the second set of investigations. But all this stuff just sort of gravitates around these corporations that have a different idea about truth than you and I probably do. They think of truth as controlled narrative. Yeah, it's the narrative that they control, and therefore people become expendable and facts become expendable because they stand in the way of the progress of the technological companies themselves. That's my take on it anyway. I think they're very dangerous, and we don't want to be having prime ministers and presidents realigning their policy decisions to come into alignment with the needs of Silicon Valley, because Silicon Valley's desires are non-rational, and they are about the growth of power for Silicon Valley ultimately, and their crazy dream of creating their digital god. Their idea of remanaging all of society. You even dig into some of the transhumanist manifestos and papers, and you'll find people who are pretty well respected within the transhumanist academic circle who talk about re-engineering all the species on Earth so that they won't be able to give or experience suffering anymore. So this humanitarian, there's a philosopher called David Pearce talks about this, and he's connected to people like Bostrom, and through that Tegmark, and I guess Mark Anderson is also in that circle as well, because he talks about the same kind of utopian stuff through re-engineering human beings. But it seemed like the craziest idea for me that you would it's almost biblical. The lion shall lie down with the lamb, right? It's like, yeah, well, through technology, we'll make sure that lions don't eat lambs anymore. And we'll do this for every species on the planet so that suffering will be extinct. You just think about the hubris and insanity of that kind of goal. And you think, should people think in these terms, right, remaking humanity, remaking the world, should we really be giving them power?
It's a good question. Should we be giving them power when they can, the capacity to do that or whatever with this nanotech and big pharma and this new biotech and all that stuff that's out there?
I mean, it's even just the fact that they're thinking these things. They probably will fail in them, but it's the failures in the experiments along the way that are horrific. In the book for Emma, it's a failed experiment to get humans to interface with computers that results in her death, but the death itself is covered up. And so I'm concerned that in this movement from human to transhuman, where humans are supposed to become, super beings enabled by technology, which sounds very sci-fi, but this is what they talk about in Silicon Valley, that there actually have to be human experiments for that to happen. And it starts off with 1, with 10, then 100. And then does that get outsourced, taken into different countries where these experiments can go on more quietly, given that Musk says we want to get to 1 million human implants in 10 years' time. So I guess I'm kind of predicting that there's going to be some human atrocities in this attempt to turn us into machines.
I think you're right. And they're selling these guys are all really good salesmen. Elon Musk, they're selling it as like this is going to be a cure for paralysis or for people who can't communicate. But what about the people who are still human and can't communicate? Like, imagine somebody coming in behind with this brain chip and tinkering with people or whatever. Like, the thing is that there's always going to be somebody evil there who's going to misuse technology. I mean, I think that history tells us that. So this new technology, people should be very wary about it. But I mean, I think you did a great job. It's a really interesting book, and congratulations. Is there anything? We're at the 40-minute mark, Ewan. Is there anything you'd like to add or anything I missed?
No, I think we're pretty good. I mean, I just I wrote the book for Emma to try to get my head around what I would do myself if I lost a family member to Silicon Valley and this transhumanist project. And I realized I'd be pretty powerless because I'd be silenced and shut up. My internet shut down. My bank accounts shut down. I'd be forced into a space of non-communication where I couldn't do anything. And you know what? I probably would lash out in some way, like Josh, the father, does in the story. And I think we might see that coming in the future as people feel more disempowered by technology through human replacement and unemployment, through feeling that our views and our opinions and our beliefs are no longer being listened to by our leaders who bought into technology. I think we will see an increase in violent backlash against the technologists themselves. And that's coming.
I think you're right. There was that thing when they put the not the printing, when the weaving technology came into England, they had a revolt against it. Yeah, so something similar. Luddite, I think, is what they were called.
Luddites, yes, yeah. And the technologists call people like me Luddites all the time.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that there's going to be a thing back. Even my kids, who were very much saturated with, being online and being on Instagram and stuff, have like, I just deleted my Instagram page because I was spending too much time. So they even realize like they're being sucked into some alternate reality, which the real life is, you just can't replace the human experience. That's what they kind of felt like. And it was, and they acknowledge that there's a element of fakery or
It's true. Actually, the really young kids as well are anti-AI because they want to learn how to draw, and they want to learn how to play the guitar. Yeah. They don't want to have all of music replaced by AI or all of the art that they see turned into AI slop. They want to learn and commit and feel creative. So there is actually a backlash against the young, which is from the young, which is extremely hopeful, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Where's the best place for people to get For Emma? I know it's out in 4 days here in the States.
4 days in the States. Yeah, you can pick it up on Amazon or Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, and there's a Kindle hardcover at this point. So people check it out. And then you are on X or Twitter, so people can find you there. Do you have a website?
I do. It's ewanmorrison.com, and Ewan spelled just the same way Ewan McGregor from Star Wars, EWAN. So that's on Twitter, on X, I'm Mr. Ewan Morrison. We have a lot of lively discussion there about the future of humanity and the internet and AI. There's ewanmorrison.com. And also I'm on Substack on Untopia. So that's Utopia with an N. I have a lot of my essays there about technology, humanity, human beings, authoritarianism, and culture.
Excellent. So people can check that out. So I'll put a link to your X Twitter, your website, and your Substack once this goes out. And thanks so much for your time, and congrats on the book. Yeah, great to talk with you. Again, the full title of the book is For Emma, a novel. Check it out, people. And the author, again, is Ewan Morrison, Morrison. And the book is out this week, so people check it out. It's well worth your time. Really interesting. So congrats, and thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Cheers.
Cheers. Stay there.